Hi all. This isn't the usual setting for my weekly meditation lectures, but for this week's episode, a technical difficulty came up and I lost about 10 minutes of footage. So I will end up recording that footage afterwards. So you'll see some spliced footage halfway through, and I hope that doesn't take away from the experience of what this week's lecture has to offer. So please stick around, try your best to follow along. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave them down below. Otherwise, let's get started with this week's discussion, this week's theme of loving kindness, of heart-centered meditation. Okay, good morning. Happy Tuesday, week 7. We've now entered week 7. Today, we'll be shifting the focus of our practice towards our heart center. So still very much to do in tune with a meditation practice, but we start to strengthen our sense of what's known as loving kindness, metta, M-E-T-T-A. A lot of what we've done leading up to this point has been strengthening our faculty of awareness. So we bring awareness to our breath, we've brought awareness to our body, we've brought awareness to our feelings, our mind states, and then even extending up to last week, we started to become aware of some of those qualities that start to show up when we start to get deeper into meditation practices, or some of those qualities rather that are beneficial to our meditation practices. Our ability to remain equanimous, to be joyful of the experience, to be curious of an experience, to remain mindful of the experience. Now, if everything leading up to this point has been around training our sense of awareness, so our ability to see things clearly, which is a very important part about meditation. When it comes to a meditation practice, we're trying to work with the truth. And it's very easy when we start to get very emotionally involved that we sprinkle on layers of fiction so that, they feel a bit better for us or they feel more true for us. But we sometimes add a layer or a filter on top of a factual experience in which we throw on our own emotional biases to it. So if what we've been doing up until this point has been training our awareness, training our ability to see things with clarity, then the hope would be with this metta practice that we're able to develop a better relationship to what we see. And what we see isn't necessarily what we're seeing with our eyes. When we meditate, eyes are closed, but it's when we feel things, when we think of things, when we start to notice sensations, thoughts, and feelings. Awareness is training us to see them for what they are. So when the ache in the knee comes up, we notice it, we're aware of it, but we also have to be mindful that we don't get caught up in it, which is where we start to get emotionally involved in it. And so what we have to learn to do is relate to this part of our body, this achy part of the body, the painful part of our body, or the suffering that we have within us, in a way that does not further our suffering. So we don't start to roll in our suffering. So in that sense, when it comes to working with metta, loving kindness, what we're trying to do is balance out our sense of awareness with our sense of taking good care of ourselves. So in that sense, kindness, which is an extension of loving kindness, will determine how we end up meeting ourselves when we think a negative thought, when we feel a strong emotion. Because there's a part of us now that, because we're training ourselves so strongly with awareness, we may be very quick to notice these distractions as they come up. But if we only train our awareness, then we start to develop a averse relationship to these distractions. We start to label them in a negative light. We start to ignore them in a negative way. We almost get frustrated when they come up. But as long as we're human beings that are, in this world that we live in, we're bound to feel and think things that may not be always the greatest things to think or feel. And so today's practice will help us strengthen our intention to relate to ourselves in a positive way. And we have to understand that everything we do for ourselves is then things that we have the capacity to do for others. So if we can be kind to ourselves, which is a big part of our practice, then the hope would be is that we can extend that kindness outwards to others. But if we have no capability, no capacity to work kindly with ourselves, then it really lessens our capacity to extend any of that kindness outwards to others. So, to me, I think metta is a very important practice. I myself have struggled with it. It is a very tricky practice because it's not about, it's called loving kindness. It's not that you need to force yourself to love everything. You're not going to go hug a tree. That is not loving kindness. I mean, maybe it is, but that's not the intention. The intention is the volition of your mind, the energy of your mind to wish well for yourself, to wish well for others. So it's a very gentle practice in that sense. A gentle practice in the sense that when you're going through something difficult thought is coming up, difficult feeling is coming up, you're going through a difficult period in your life, that it's very easy to become closed-minded in those moments, to close yourself off from seeing the other side. And what the hope would be with a practice like this is that it allows us to stay open. That we don't just shut down or close the door on these parts of ourselves that may be sometimes difficult to deal with, but that we're able to relate to ourselves in a positive way without turning on ourselves, turning against ourselves. Does this make sense so far? The whole idea being here that... What did I just do? So let's take a few moments to discuss the role that metta plays in our meditation practice, in our mindfulness practice. Metta is a part of what is known as the Brahma Viharas, which are the divine heart qualities that we seek to cultivate. And we don't need to think about this too deeply, but it helps if we can plant the seeds so that we can cultivate these qualities within our practice, within our daily lives. And some of them we've already started to work with and we may not even know it. So metta, loving kindness, is one of those 4 qualities. Another quality that we've encountered when it comes to the experience of working with pain and discomfort in the body and mind is karuna, compassion. That when it comes to facing moments of discomfort, whether that discomfort is in the body or in the mind, that we be kind to ourselves, that we don't end up judging the body for what it feels or judging the mind for what it thinks, but we allow ourselves to hold space for these difficulties to arise. A very interesting quality is mudita, which is joy. But it's not necessarily the joy that we've been taught of or explained of. The way that this was explained to me, mudita being, overwhelming sympathetic joy. And the example that was used was this. Imagine you and a friend of yours or a colleague of yours or someone else other than you. Imagine you are both up for a promotion at work, a raise at work, a higher position at work. And let's just say that you are undoubtedly the more qualified being, the more qualified for the job, the more competent person for the job. All signs should point to you receiving this new position, this raise, this upgrade. But through no fault of your own and nothing malicious having happened from the other person, that other person gets the job. They get the raise, they get the better benefits. Everything happens in their favor. Now, assuming that this person is not your enemy, nothing's ever happened in the past, you're happy for them. And we've probably talked about or seen and felt experiences within our lives in which we are happy for others, but it's almost, we're biting our tongue with our happiness for them. And what sympathetic joy would allow us to hopefully cultivate is the sense of joy that isn't bittersweet. And that we can lean more into the sweetness of the joy than to taste the bitterness of that type of joy. It's not to say that you wouldn't have wanted that raise, you wouldn't have wanted that promotion, because it could have provided you with a host of benefits into the future. But for whatever reason, that other person received the benefits that you thought you were to receive. We still have to be joyful for that person's success, even if it has unfortunately come at the cost of you losing the prospect of those benefits yourselves. And one of these other qualities is something that I've talked about in the weeks before, which is upekkha, equanimity. That when we come to deal with ourselves in these moments of difficulty, that we can keep a balanced mind. As I've spoke to before, when we start to face difficulties in life, it is very easy that the heart space closes off, that we become close-minded, close-hearted. And what we are trying to do as best as we can is remain equanimous, whether we choose to act or not act. Remaining equanimous will tell us and at least show us what is the right path to take. And if it comes to these qualities, and if we're just talking about these qualities of loving kindness, the Brahma Viharas, one of the most important things that we have to understand is that it is not the easiest thing to work towards. Beginners, and even myself, I have struggled with these qualities in the past. Because it sometimes doesn't feel real. You say all the kind words. You wish people well. You wish people to be happy, to be peaceful, to be loving, to be free from pain and misery. And what you'll notice in the practice is that there is a sense of repetition towards it. But it's not necessarily about feeling. You say you want people to feel a certain way, to feel happy, to feel peaceful, to feel at ease. And you yourself might have difficulty feeling those things. And so that's one of the things that you may notice with today's practice, is that some of these things that, might be easier to wish for others, sometimes feels difficult to wish for ourselves. And if there's one thing that we can try to understand when it comes to this practice of loving kindness, is that we learn to hold space, even for our imperfections. The parts of ourselves that we sometimes shut down, ignore, put away, put off to the side. That we learn how to hold space for those with kindness. And so the hope being that when we can recognize suffering, whether that's suffering within ourselves, suffering within the body, suffering within the mind, or outwards, when we can recognize suffering in someone else, that we don't meet it with judgment, we don't meet it with ignorance, but that we can meet it with some sense of care, some sense of kindness, these qualities that we are trying our best to cultivate. And there's a quote that I'm reading right here, and it very much encompasses the whole idea of a complete meditation and mindfulness practice. Awareness without kindness can feel incomplete. And what metta does, what loving kindness allows us to do, is to bring a sense of warmth to the practice. Because what happens for a lot of us is that when we observe pain, we observe discomfort, we observe suffering, we sometimes view these sensations, these feelings, these thoughts, however the manifestation of your suffering is, we view it from a place of resistance. We almost end up treating it like an enemy. And that is not the plan here. That is not the hope here. That you end up showing some kindness. You offer some warmth, some compassion, so that you can honor the humanity of this human condition, whether it's ours or someone else. And in doing so, that really brings a complete aspect to this practice. Because without it, awareness will take over, and awareness can almost border on paranoia, and we do not wish for that. And so our awareness needs to be strengthened and complemented with an equal effort and strength in our kindness, in this loving kindness. So, if we're going to just briefly touch upon how the structure of a metta practice unfolds before we get into the actual practice itself, there's a few ways to do this, and one of the ways that it was offered to me and taught to me was that we introduce a loving kindness practice at the end of our traditional meditation practice. Whether that's a breath-centered practice, a body-centered practice, but towards the end of our practice, the hope is there that we've created space. We have a little bit more spaciousness to work with. And from that spaciousness, it's about opening ourselves up to send off the energy of our practice, the goodwill that we've created, to extend it outwards. So there's a few stages that this practice of loving kindness can take place over. Naturally, we start with ourselves. Most of us, we begin our meditation practice for a selfish reason. And this is not a bad type of selfishness. We're trying to find peace of mind. We're trying to manage stress. We're trying to manage our emotional reactivity. We're trying to ease tension within our being. And in the process of working mindfully and having this meditation practice, the hope would be that it happens. And so we offer the phrasing of loving kindness, which I'll speak to in a few minutes. We start with ourselves, that we wish for ourselves to be, and I've mentioned this in previous yoga classes as well. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live peacefully and harmoniously. May I be liberated from my pain and suffering. And although just at this moment, I'm just saying the words, we have to get caught up that we don't just go through the motions of the words, because otherwise it's not genuine. It feels very artificial. And what we need to do as we work with this practice is sit with some of these phrases to really absorb the energy of the words, with the hope that they are actually resonating with us. For some of us, this is a difficult practice. When was the last time you wished yourself to be happy, to be healthy, to be peaceful? Maybe not any time in recent memory. But we start with ourselves. And then we can extend these phrasings of loving kindness outwards. And so it might extend then to someone that is easy to love, or someone that you may deem worthy of your love, or someone that is very close to you. For me, it's my cat. But it could be your friends, your family, your loved ones, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife. And the same type of phrasing can be brought in. Whatever you naturally wish for yourself, you would wish for others. But you have to have the capacity to feel it within yourself to be able to offer it outwards to others. Being mindful of that. From someone easy to love or someone close to you that you do actually love, you extend a little bit further out, a little bit more distance. That distance being sent off to what we could label a neutral person. And a neutral person isn't someone that you don't see too often, but it's just someone that you may not know fully. So, you might see them in passing. Could be a neighbor down the street. Could be someone you see at the gym. Could be the barista that always makes your coffee, or the store that you go to frequently. There are people that we meet throughout our daily lives that we see, that we interact with, but it may just be very surface level. And so the same kind of offerings can be provided to them. One step further from that, and for some of us, this is where the difficulties arise. This is not easy to do, and this may be a stage in the practice of loving kindness that takes some time to get to, but it's towards a difficult person. Difficult in the sense that you may have disagreement with. You don't have to even know the person. Maybe someone that you see in the news, someone that you hear about, things that are happening in the world. But you bring to mind this person, and naturally feelings are stirred up. And this is where we have to really tap into that genuine quality of loving kindness. We need to learn to keep ourselves open. So we still try our best from a place of honesty, of genuine intention. We still wish for them to be well, to be happy, to be peaceful, to be free from their pain and suffering. As much as you disagree with someone politically, personally, whatever your beliefs are and their beliefs are, we have to be able to recognize the humanity in another being, as hard as it may be. And then that energy, the energy of this loving kindness, it extends outwards even further to encompass all beings. Near or far, big or small, visible or invisible, all sentient beings. To be able to exude these qualities of kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, to be able to extend the Brahma Viharas to all beings. So it starts very small, starts with yourself. You create the change first within yourself to be a kind human being, a loving human being, a compassionate human being. You extend that outwards to someone that you are familiar with, familial with, friendly with. Extend out further to people that you may or may not fully know, but they're there in your lives. Extending out further to people that you may just not know, people that you disagree with, people that you don't have the best relationships with, and extending it to what would be all of humanity around the world. And how we do this is just a very series of very simple phrases. We don't have to overcomplicate them, and for each and every person, it may vary. Within a lot of my yoga practices, I end with, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live peacefully and harmoniously, may you be liberated from your pain and suffering. These are just simple Buddhist phrases that get said. But within the context of keeping things super simple, you may just say something like, may I be well, may I be peaceful, may I be at ease. It could be something as simple as that. If there's phrases that work well for you, language that feels natural to you, gravitate towards that. We don't have to get into the weeds of the exact feeling that we want the person to feel. having wellness, health, prosperity, whatever it is, that is more than enough. But then we would start first with ourselves. May I be well. May I be at ease. May I be peaceful. And right now, although I'm saying it, we would sit with the feeling of what comes up as we say it. So we would hold space. May I be well. Give yourself a breath or two, like feel if anything comes up. And for some of us, something comes up. For some of us, very little comes up. Once again, it's not necessarily about what's happening here, but it's about bringing in honesty to how you say it up here. Our actions are a reflection of our words are a reflection of our thoughts. And if we can think positively, there's a positive intent with you wishing or thinking well of others, then that positive intent radiates outwards when you speak positively, that you wish someone as well. And then that positive vocal action would eventually down the line, if need to be, or if opportunity presents itself, would be reflected in a positive action, whether you're doing something with your hands, you're giving, you're helping in some form of way. But all of it starts with the state of your mind. So these aren't necessarily, you have to have the right atmosphere for a practice like this. You wouldn't want to practice loving kindness after getting cut off in traffic, necessarily, right? Like when you're just inflamed with anger, because it would take a few moments maybe to cool down. And even, let's just say you've had a very difficult meditation practice or a very difficult day and you're working through or transitioning into a practice like this, you may just need a few moments to just settle, to ground down. If your body has been very achy during a meditation practice, you may need to take a moment to adjust yourself before transitioning into a practice like this. We really want to make sure that if we're doing these things, that we're fully intentional with saying them, with feeling them as we say them. So a lot of it is just about creating a strong setting, a strong atmosphere physically within your body, so that when we do work with a practice like this, we are genuine in our expression. Whether you are saying it out aloud, whether you're saying it internally, whether the person that you're saying it to is right in front of you or half across the world. We want to be as honest with that form of expression at the most distant level as we would be with ourselves. So that's why we want to start with ourselves. And for some of us, there may be certain days where, you're only going to focus on yourself. May I be happy? May I be healthy? May I be well? May I be peaceful? Only focus on myself. I don't have the capacity today to extend that outwards, and that's okay. You'll still be able to if you end up approaching someone. It's not to say you're going to be hopefully closed off immediately, but when it comes to the practice, we want to practice it in a way that, once again, feels genuine, feels honest, feels very intentional with how we do it. So this is much less about a practice of centering ourselves with breath. We're not trying to be overly aware of anything, but we do wish to work with the sensation of being very honest with ourselves. And I guess the more practical example of how this would be integrated in our daily lives or even in other meditation practices is if you're having a disagreement with someone, once again, we may be very quick to react. And just that moment of pausing, of softening, of taking a deep breath can help to invite a little bit of loving kindness into your body so that when you do offer your perspective, your words, that they don't come from a place of being malicious, angered, hatred, anything like that. During moments of stress, it's very easy to start spiraling, and loving kindness can be that balancing act that you at least remember that you're still here to take care of yourself. So you may still have a lot of responsibilities on your plate that you need to address, but they don't come at a cost of your humanity, of your being well. And then there is no shortage of suffering around us. And it's not that you are here on this world to alleviate the suffering of everyone. That's not our job. But even just the silent wishing of goodwill, even to people that we may disagree with or things that we see that are outside of our control. That's just that simple volition of mind, the energy of or the mindset to have to wish someone well, in which you may just not consider wishing someone well. That can be enough. These are all practical applications in which we can try to understand that kindness doesn't need to be visible to be real. I think that's a big part of this whole practice. The love, the kindness, the compassion that we're trying to exhibit here doesn't need to be outwardly shown for it to be real. And that will be hopefully something that can be felt internally. Any questions before we try a practice? Does the idea of the practice make sense? Okay, cool. So, just as we always do then, let's take a few moments. This will be our practice on loving kindness. I will guide us through it from start to finish. Let's just take a few moments as we bring awareness to our breath, to our body. When it comes to all of our meditation practices, grounding is very important. Grounding allows us to bring our mind into our bodies, to settle our minds onto our breathing. And this process of grounding doesn't need to be rushed, so please don't rush. Feel comfortable within your body. So if in this first minute or so you need to make an adjustment, please adjust. Feel relaxed, feel comfortable, feel at ease within your body. And as we settle our minds into our bodies, can we notice where we feel our breathing? Can the breath be felt with clarity around the nose? Feeling your inhales and exhales pass through your nostrils? Or does the breath feel a bit more clear somewhere within the body itself, the chest, the belly? At this point in time, I invite you to bring awareness to yourself. Although your eyes are closed and although you are in your body, you can either maybe visualize that you would be looking at yourself in a mirror or that you are looking at yourself. When it comes to the phrases of loving kindness, once again, they do not need to be forced. If any of these phrases feel difficult for you to express, that's okay. May I be happy. And you may just have to say this 1, 2, 3 times. Feel the intention of the words that are said. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I be free. In this context, free from our pain and suffering. We'll repeat these phrases one more time, directing them towards ourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I be free. So let's take these phrases and we extend them outwards. We'll start with someone easy. So you may just choose to take a moment to bring to mind. Could be family, could be friend, could be a pet. No right or wrong. And having that person in mind, having that being in mind. We try. May they be happy. And it's your choice. You can name the person as you say it. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful. May they be free. We can shift 1 degree further towards a more neutral person. This can still be a person you see from time to time, but someone that you may not be directly involved with. Colleague at work. If you frequent a store quite a bit, a coffee shop, could be that barista that makes your coffee. Friendly person, but you don't know much about them. That's okay. A neighbor that you see from time to time. Bringing this person into mind. We once again try to extend this sense of loving kindness to them. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful. May they be free. And if things ever start to feel too difficult during this practice, we can always just come back to ourselves and our breath. And this final one is optional. If we have the capacity to explore this, we can. But if you have the ability to bring to mind maybe a difficult person, someone that you may disagree with quite a bit, someone that you don't see eye to eye with, whether you directly know this person or not does not matter. And bringing this person to mind may create a certain kind of sensation within us. We don't let it overwhelm us. We acknowledge it. But once again, we try. Keeping that same sense of genuine intention, that honesty within you. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful. May they be free. We can slowly shift our energy and awareness back into our bodies now. Just sensing your body to see if anything has maybe shifted from a practice like this. Mentally, emotionally, physically. We don't need to look for an answer, but if something comes up, we may notice it. And as we approach the end of this meditation practice, as we usually do, let's bring awareness back to our bodies. We can bring our palms closer together. We can create some heat within our hands, allowing for that heat to wash over your face as you then take your time to reopen your eyes. So just take a few moments. Discussion questions, relatively simple. Feel free to have your input. If you wish to say something, you can. If you don't, no problem. What felt natural or unnatural about this? Was it easier for you to show kindness to others or yourself? And what resistance showed up if it did?
Everyone I chose was someone I knew. So I thought this someone in this way. And then let's see how it goes. Because right now, so. But it did help because you can only give what you have.
Mm.
And so practicing this more, in the intention, you fill yourself with it and it's going to come out easier. So, yeah.
And especially when it comes to metta, this isn't measured by how we feel necessarily. It's our willingness to open up and stay, to stay with the fact that you still wish well for someone that you may disagree with or someone that you don't know. That is a very difficult space to stay open in, because it's very easy to close ourselves off of, you don't want to give, because you said it's about, you can only give what you have. And when it comes to working with a difficult person, there's a part of you that doesn't want to give. But this is a practice about still being open to giving, even when we don't want to. Because it's not for them, it's not for their benefit, it's for your own benefit. And that it's a very hard thing to sometimes feel or to stay open to. Thank you for sharing.
That was perfect for me. So I'm struggling with something, but it's funny because, when you conjure up an image of someone you love, like a child or whatever, that's really easy to give. And then when you go to the person who's wronged you, I kept thinking, okay, at the end of the day, we're all pretty broken. And, they're somebody's child too, or they're somebody's brother or somebody, and so they didn't necessarily get the love that they needed to heal themselves. So, and if we go back to the concept that we're all sort of one, and they need to be loved too, which is hard, but yeah.
That is, a sense of liberation that you can find within the ability to come to a place of that kind of conclusion. It does not discredit or discount what has happened, but it sprinkles in the tiniest amount of humanity into the experience that allows you to, I guess the word that I'm trying to think maybe mimics the ability to not take the experience so personally. It's still something that has happened, but that event, whatever had happened that caused someone to wrong you, like you said, this person may not have been loved as a child or not given the foundation to be the loving person that they could have been. And we have to be able to see a lot of different perspectives sometimes to come to that place of realization. But it does create a little bit of freedom from you not having to, feel the burden or the pain as I don't know what the word is, but as deeply as it might have felt. Because when we can layer on these perspectives or layer on these places of understanding, they empower us to let go, to no longer be a victim or to hold on as deeply as we've been. It's a tough one. It's a tough practice. This is, for some situations, it's, there are people that we know, very dear people, that don't have nearly as much as we have. And it really strengthens that sense of being grateful for what we have if we wish those people to be happy, peaceful, free. We take for granted just our ability to do some of the things that we do with effortless ease on a day-to-day, go for a walk. But there may be somebody that that would kill to be in your shoes. And they may not be able to do all the things that you're able to do. They're full of pain, they're full of all of these other obstacles in the way, physical, mental, emotional. And all we can do is wish them well. And we really do hope that when we're saying these things, that we're saying them from a place where it feels true to say it. That once again, we don't just say it to go through the motions of saying the words because they feel nice to say. They're not just platitudes. I think that's the right word. But that there is actual some weight, some gravity to that word that's being spoken. Was it easier to say the phrases to yourself or to someone that you care for? Which was the easier, yourself or the person you care for? Pardon? Equal. For some of us, it just depends on the relationship you have to yourself. For some of us, it's very hard for us to we wish everyone else well, but we don't wish ourselves well. Right? We want the best for everyone else, but we can't visualize the best for ourselves. And this is one of those practices where, it really makes you evaluate that, how can I give so much to others, but I can't give anything to myself? Anything just being an extreme, but it really makes you sit with some uncomfortable truths sometimes. So, in one hand, this, although we are working with phrases, these emotions can come up from a practice like this, of working with some difficult feelings that surface in the body of, like, when was the last time you just said these words to yourself? And these aren't just meant to be said as like affirmations, but like, when was the last time that you just sat with yourself and be like, man, like, may I be happy? May I be peaceful. May I be at ease with myself, with all that is around me. May I be free from my pain and suffering. They sound good to say, and maybe we've said them, but do we honestly mean them when we say them? And this is really much about, so the first way that we viewed ourselves, it's like, imagine, you're staring at yourself in a mirror when you say this kind of deal. Or just in the sake for our meditation practice, like, take a step back from your body. View yourself as a being. View yourself as that person that you love so dearly. So for some of us that find it easier to extend that sense of love and kindness to people that we hold dear, children, family, imagine that you are that person. Like, really be able to extend that sense of goodwill, that positive intent to your own existence. Being a human being is a very special incarnation. It is through nothing but sheer luck that we have made it as who we are today. But we often forget just the magnificence of life, the beauty of life, when we're just weighed down by all of life. And the bare minimum is just wishing for happiness for ourselves. To have a happy existence. It's not to say that by wishing happiness, you're going to absolve yourself of all misery. That's not what we're trying to do. But despite the misery, can we still be happy? Despite sickness and aging and all of these things that we are bound to face in life, can we still be well and healthy? Despite, the hardship of stresses and responsibilities and anxieties, can we still find peace? And given the nature of what human condition is, can we still be free? Can we not hold ourselves as victims of the human condition that is the human being is bound to die at the end of the road? But until we hit that point, can we just be free? Can we live a free life that we're not, peeking around the corner every day with anxiety around our shoulders, or all of the stress that overwhelms us? Can we, despite the reality of what life holds, can we still be and have all of these things for ourselves?
For me, if it's someone I love, quite frankly, I would wish them to be happy. Because, take for instance, as a father and a child, and if your child's going through something, you say, listen, I wish I had all that pain. I wish I had all that, but you be happy. And you tend to deal, okay, I've got it, okay, I'll deal with it. But the intention is for someone you love to be happy. For me, it's stronger. I'd rather take all the burdens of my loved ones, and okay, I'll deal with it. It's a passage of life, as I said last time. Deal with it, but let them be happy. I feel stronger that way.
I think the challenge is there's a well, and if you don't take care of loving kindness to yourself, the well will be depleted. So there'll be a point where you won't be able to
That's true.
take on the burden of your children or whatever. So I think that's the way I think about it. Yeah, I mean, you can give and give.
Given choice. But you're right.
So there's a,
if you don't take care of your health, how can you then?
Right, or you don't think you deserve it.
That's also true.
Then you're
very true. Very true.
unable to necessarily take on the next thing. Right?
Thank you all for sharing.
Yeah.
I guess if there's one thing we can, just reflect on as a closing, although this practice, loving kindness, metta, this is what it's called, this week wasn't necessarily about becoming a more loving person. But it is about removing some of the barriers and obstacles that we place in the way to the kindness that's already within us. So we may feel that, we may have felt it when we sat to wish ourselves happiness. A barrier may have come up, some feeling may have come up, some apprehension may have come up, when maybe not for yourself, but maybe for that neutral person or that difficult person. This practice today, this hope being over the long run, you're able to, peel back some of those layers, those parts of you that are resistant to offering compassion, joy, love, kindness to yourself from time to time, to others from time to time. I think this is a practice like this can really transform the whole meditative journey, the whole experience of understanding that what this practice isn't just for us. It starts with us, but as I've said, it needs to, it has to extend outwards. And loving kindness is that bridge of meeting ourselves in a way that is kind and loving, and also meeting others in a way that is kind and loving. You may not be able to change people. That's not what we're trying to do. But how we react or how we respond or how we relate to others can change despite disagreements that may be there. I think that's where I want to kind of end it this week. Next week, we'll drill a bit more into anicca, impermanence, how everything is always changing. So what feels so real in one moment may not feel real or be real in the next moment. But we'll save that topic for next week. Thank you all for coming today. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
You picked up very well.
Oh.